HarperCollins presents The Fall of Gondolin by J.R.R. Tolkien, edited by Christopher Tolkien.
Read by Timothy West and Samuel West.
Preface. In my preface to Beren and Luthien, I remarked that in my 93rd year this is presumptively the last book in the long series of editions of my father's writings. I use the word presumptively because at that time I thought hazily of treating in the same way as Beren and Luthien the third of my father's great tales, The Fall of Gondolin. But I thought this very improbable, and I presumed, therefore, that Beren and Luthien would be my last. The presumption proved wrong, however, and I must now say that in my 94th year The Fall of Gondolin is indubitably the last. In this book one sees, from the complex narrative of many strands in various texts, how Middle-earth moved towards the end of the First Age, and how my father's perception of this history that he had conceived unfolded through long years until, at last, in what was to be its finest form, it foundered. The story of Middle-earth in the elder days was always a shifting structure. My history of that age, so long and complex as it is, owes its length and complexity to this endless welling up. A new portrayal, a new motive, a new name, above all, new associations. My father, as the maker, ponders the large history, and as he writes he becomes aware of a new element that has entered the story. I will illustrate this by a very brief but notable example, which may stand for many. An essential feature of the story of the Fall of Gondolin was the journey that the man Tuor undertook with his companion Voronwe to find the hidden elvish city of Gondolin. My father told of this very briefly in the original tale, without any noteworthy event, indeed no event at all, but in the final version, in which the journey was much elaborated, one morning out in the wilderness they heard a cry in the woods. We might almost say he heard a cry in the woods, sudden and unexpected. To show that this is not fanciful, in his letter to me of the 6th of May, 1944, my father wrote,
"A new character has come on the scene. I am sure I did not invent him. I did not even want him, though I like him. But there he came, walking into the woods of Ithilien, Faramir, the brother of Boromir.
A tall man, clothed in black, and holding a long black sword, then appeared, and came towards them, calling out a name as if he was searching for one who was lost. But without any speech he passed them by. Tuor and Voronwe knew nothing to explain this extraordinary sight, but the maker of the history knows very well who he was. He was none other than the far-famed Túrin Turambar, who was the first cousin of Tuor, and he was fleeing from the ruin, unknown to Tuor and Voronwe, of the city of Nargothrond. Here is a breath of one of the great stories of Middle-earth. Túrin's flight from Nargothrond is told in the Children of Húrin, but with no mention of this meeting, unknown to either of those kinsmen, and never repeated. To illustrate the transformations that took place as time passed, nothing is more striking than the portrayal of the god Ulmo, as originally seen, sitting among the reeds and making music at twilight by the river Sirion. But many years later, the Lord of all the waters of the world rises out of the great storm of the sea at Vinyamar. Ulmo does indeed stand at the centre of the great myth. With Valinor largely opposed to him, the great god nonetheless mysteriously achieves his end. Looking back over my work, now concluded after some 40 years, I believe that my underlying purpose was, at least in part, to try to give more prominence to the nature of the Silmarillion, and its vital existence in relation to the Lord of the Rings, thinking of it rather as the first age of my father's world of Middle-earth and Valinor. There was indeed the Silmarillion that I published in 1977, but this was composed, one might even say contrived,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?